negotiation meeting this month?
We had one right at the end of October, and I can't
Right,
remember.
it was like on the 30th, right? No, that was
Yeah,
this month.
yeah, it was like the 30th or something, and then we had one on the 20th of November, right? I think that's what it was.
Yeah, we had one on the 20th.
November
I just
20th.
didn't know if we had one before then.
Right at the end. I think it came after.
It was in October.
Right, but it was right at the
Right.
end of October. I think, like after the last board meeting.
Right, so I think that was it. So 11/20.
I know. I had 3 basketball games I had to really put that long in the sands. We had the November. So you're not feeling that? I'm right, yeah.
Which one?
I like that my calendar keeps things. It doesn't feel, you know.
Everyone will survive.
Sheena, I have a question, personal question.
You must feel that. There's just so much that runs through it.
I know when I'm like, I constantly printing emails and things in my folder.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't forget.
I almost should print that.
I still forget.
I thought I'd updated my address everywhere, but I got a reimbursement check for a fuel receipt, and it went to my old address.
So that's because that's finance. So on payroll, it's right.
Okay,
So it's separate from payroll.
okay.
So Jill.
Who else do I need to let know?
Jill.
Jill.
Jill did finance.
Okay. Now, does that, it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I updated the kids.
Thank you.
I was just like,
Just kind of projects for next spring and stuff.
Hey, Alice.
Hey, Lion, how are you?
Good.
So, I don't know if you noticed, but what's gonna happen with Lion Sleeper? That guy died.
Yeah, back in May, a really inconvenient time for the rest of the world because
Yeah,
the probate process is slow,
yeah.
really slow, and the entourage around him, for lack of a better word, is slow. He's estranged from his parents. He's had a bitter divorce with his wife shortly after he had bought the sleeper with him.
Okay.
So he has 2 teenage sons under 16 who need representation. He has a girlfriend to whom he was engaged, who's supposed to be married in October, who has kept her nose in it all, but legally she has no
No say in it.
say in it. And then his sister, who is finally now the executor of the estate.
Okay.
And there's not a ton of estate. I mean, he's 39 years old. He's
Right.
got a lot of debt, not a lot of equity.
Right,
But
it would be the equity in the business and,
But those businesses are set up, at least we were, and I think most of them are set up on a 6-month payment plan, a resort kind of where your income is going well
Yeah.
in December, so you make payments for 6
Yeah.
months, and then it's off.
yeah.
So they haven't,
I was gonna say, Mary's gonna want
or have not missed a payment yet, so the bank
Yeah.
can't,
Okay, that's good to know.
and lay a claim to it, and the probate court has not finished their business, and there's just so little equity. I don't think you go through probate if you have less than $200,000 in assets.
Yeah, I don't
And I
know.
think he was just barely squeaking past that, so, it's just frustrating.
Well, 'cause there's no
They are not gonna
contradiction,
run a
you know.
business.
Are you ready, Jeff?
Which I think is.
Yeah.
Sheena, do I
Yeah.
I know houses are all just sitting there.
just have it now?
Haven't been touched all year.
Before I forget, thank you.
Or animals, or dogs, or the machines still there.
Well, and then, then you have your business, your return business, and they're gonna go somewhere else.
Right, and I'm getting those calls, which is
Yeah.
where would you go, and the employees are going elsewhere, and they're getting to call Scott. This woman just moved her daughter now, listen to some
No,
of the
but,
saying, hey,
yeah,
yeah, come here, go there, whatever.
I know.
So unfortunately, I feel bad about that.
I think I put mine on because I was fully confident I was.
And then
person
Sheena,
can
I was
do
gonna
even
tell you,
if they
I
were
tried to go
motivated
into
to do
pay, like the whatever, and
aren't you glad
change
you were out of it?
my missed punch, and I
I mean,
couldn't.
Bubba asked me that one.
So I was hoping you
Because
did
he's seeing the
end up
writing
doing
on the wall,
that.
they're gonna get me back, and,
Well, I
They wanna
emailed
have
you
somebody
last
run
week, I think
business
it
for 'em.
was.
or do they just wanna sell the assets off?
What?
You know, get
No,
what they
yes,
still owe.
no, I
are
took
owed
care of
on
it.
Okay.
Be done with it.
I was just letting you know that I couldn't, so if I message again,
Burn the houses.
like it's a you have to do thing.
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay,
You know,
And
and it's
everyone's
like,
time should be rounding again.
okay.
There was a system
I do
update.
too,
He was
well,
doing a good
And
job.
it,
and you had a good
Basically
business,
throw it on
you know,
my
so
30
it's
years
like,
of
Oh.
life into this
yeah.
crap.
it was like a
Good
software
times.
thing, so
Okay.
everyone should be good again.
We're not done gabbing over here.
Okay, come on.
We got a Viking tank to go on.
Cutting you off. All right. Ready to get started?
Yeah.
Fire away, Gridley.
Okay, I'm gonna start the working session and start it with the citizens forum, which doesn't look like there's.
No citizens.
Moving on. On to board committee reports. First up, we've got the school forest committee. And Boyd said he would give the report.
It's actually not what Boyd said, but, let's see, we mainly talked about, the skis are in, and there were 2 different sizes, as I recall. And we kind of spitballed a bunch of ideas for next year and coming up, and feel free if I'm missing anything pertinent.
Talked about the storybook trail,
Storybook trail, yep.
you know, a couple grant opportunities that we're looking into. Maybe for in the future, talk about the loafing shed, how well that looks and how well it was perceived. And we also, since Tim was gone, we've all told him that he's gonna be grooming the trails this year.
Fair enough. It's actually the highlight of my winter, till that one day where you get stuck on the back 40 and you have to call Jeff to come to get you out or whatever.
I think that was about it.
Can I ask a question? Is that allowed to the school forest committee?
No, no.
You have to fill out the citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just was gonna ask a question about ski storage, and maybe that's gonna be approached, and usage. So.
That was talked about.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
Partially because I do get asked sometimes about how do we get to use those, and my usual policy has been, you know, unless it's a group and there's like somebody who can be the point person about getting them out and putting them away, I kind of said no. But I'm willing to change that if there's a plan or a desire to have more usage for the community. Anyway, that maybe is you can approach that at your next meeting if you want.
Yes.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So I think if we use the snowshoes that we've had for many years as a model, normally it wasn't just rented out to the community, but if we had bio classes would use it. Elementary teachers could sign them up for their class if they wanted to do recess. I see something like that with the skis. Community ed, Andy Pearson used to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and
see
I
the
like.
skis kind of falling under that same kind of thing, and when we do our moonlight ski, that would be a time for people coming.
I'll admit to using some judgment on that when like the Boy Scouts wanted to use them and there was a teacher involved, I could put them somewhere, they could get into the school, use them, and then put them back. So, you know, some organized groups if the logistics worked, which if you're still okay with that, I can use my judgment on some of that.
And we can, usually you put a value on that, and there's,
Yeah.
if they use tables, you give $100 or something like that, just.
Yeah.
We should probably get some.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't remember what they are per unit, but they're not cheap.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap. So,
But we don't have to have a formal answer now, but maybe that's a question for the school forest committee to kind of approach how you want those managed on a non-school hour basis. So.
and it sounds like you're scoring on the summer class.
That's
That's where we're at right now.
where the snowshoes were for a long time too.
That was actually one of the discussion topics, was how to store them so that it was convenient.
Yeah.
And we were trying to think about like a wagon-like thing, or there were,
Other schools
stuff
have
like
done, like garbage cans on wheels with holes in the bottom, so when they come in, they
Yeah.
drain out.
Yeah.
So I think there's systems in place that are already being used. And some of that was written into the grant. Might be a little money left over. That might be something we could use a financial report for the next school force committee. Okay,
anything else?
moving on to negotiations. Maybe I'll let Jeff handle this, so we don't say the wrong stuff.
We're negotiating.
I think it's going well with MSEA and the teachers group. We meet next week on the 5th, we meet with MSEA. And I think our list of tentative agreements are longer and more than stuff we're still hashing out. And say the same for the teachers. And I think we meet on the following,
like a
13th, the 12th.
Yeah.
And we're working on dates with Chris and Nancy, so I did hear back, so we just need to, I got your reply on some dates that would work for you, so.
Okay.
Boyd and Lynn, they can send me some dates on, it's probably easier to tell me what won't work, so I know what we have to work with, that what might work, so.
I did see that email come through.
So hopefully by the end of this week, we have that set good.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's that, negotiations.
Okay. Next up, we've got the superintendent's report, Mr. Wilson.
So enrollment projection is in your board packet, and we're up 1 in the high school, otherwise we're kind of hanging in there at about 429 students. Written communication, I think I emailed both of these out earlier just because of the deadlines for if you wanted to be put on the ballot. If you want to vote, I think it's in your board packet, you can fill that out. I think I have to submit it this, like, tomorrow. So I'm assuming no one is asking to run for any of these boards by the response, so those are just written communications. If you want to vote, you can set that on the table as you leave. Staffing, I sent out some information. We are proposing a hire tonight, a paraprofessional for the early childhood special education program, and that's due to more students qualifying for special ed. So it's not a budgeted position, but we do get reimbursed from the state for special ed. And it's just one of those things that we have to provide the one-on-one services for some students, so. And I anticipate the strong possibility, the way it's looking with assessments and more kids qualifying, that we may have to add another part-time, full-time para just to meet those support needs here before the school year is over. We also have a resignation that came in, I think I got it on Saturday, for early childhood school readiness. And Mary and I are working on how we're going to fill that position. We have a couple viable options in the works, but by the end of the week, we'll have that confirmed, I feel. So I will share that information as it gets confirmed.
So Jeff, do you have to advertise that internally?
I will post it internally.
Post it, yeah.
But we are gonna try to look internally right now to fill it. One way or another, we will provide the
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had the legal responsibility to post it internally, or if you can just reassign. Didn't know.
I think we have the right to reassign.
Yeah. I just didn't want us to get in trouble over
Why not?
something like
Not
that.
in trouble all the time. No.
Jeff doesn't have enough
Okay.
going on.
No.
Yeah.
Well, there's, licensure always comes into play.
Right.
So
Right. Uh-huh.
we only have a limited number of people that have the licensure,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
But if we can't fill it within, then we will have to advertise and do some temporary stopgap measures with staff, so. Also, I think I sent you, it's a draft copy, and I strongly say draft, because you can see, if you looked at it at all, there's some numbers that aren't in it. But we do have the Widseth Facility Assessment draft that Seth and I need to go through. So I'm anticipating hopefully in December, possibly they would come and present on that. And like I said, that's gonna be a good tool as we look at some upcoming significant needs on our facilities. I'm also working on, and I will be sending out in the upcoming week or so, my update, some of the deadlines. If we do move to have a bond referendum or an operating referendum, there's some deadlines as far as what we need to do so that we can be set up to either do a referendum in May or August or next November. So that's something that's in the back of all of our minds, and so I'm working on that, and I'll be sharing more information. And the final thing I have is our strategic plan review. Last month we talked about student achievement, and this month we're talking about student support. And this is not all inclusive, but it's what I could come up with and what people provided information. It's quite lengthy, and I'm not going to go through it verbatim. But what we do for student support, whether it's academic or behavior, is it's multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS. It's a tiered response. They used to call it response to interventions. RTI was the acronym that they used a while ago. And it comes out of the medical field. And the basis of it is you use data to make decisions, and you respond by needs on a tiered level. Because you have limited resources, you have limited people. How do you meet the needs for kids? And this shows, it's upside down. It used to be, a pyramid used to be this way. But it shows that the tier 1, that's your universal, that's your curriculum. That's what all the kids in the classroom get. Your tier 2 is small group. It could be some of the title services, where we have a group of 5 to 7 kids getting some specialized instruction in reading or math. And then your tier 3 intensive, that's could be one-on-one. We have some of our title teachers working on very specific reading skills, trying to close some gaps, 20 minutes, 4 days a week, one-on-one. And the goal of this, especially with students, is to try to head them off before we have to assess them for special ed services. Not that there's anything wrong with kids being in special ed, but you want it to be for a specific disability, not because they have some gaps for whatever reason in their learning. So by doing good core instruction, providing support for kids that might have gaps that we can close at tier 2 or tier 3, we want to do that to ensure that that if they don't have an actual learning disability or behavioral disability, that we put them into special ed, just because there might be some gaps, if that makes sense. In the packet that's sent out, this is just an example of a flow chart. This is primarily for academics, kind of see the steps that we take. Last month we talked about FastBridge and STAR testing. FastBridge is used in elementary 3 times a year. That's our screener. So we try to catch them right in the fall. Those kids that are behind in reading is very specific where they need to be at that age. And use national norm numbers, so that's what we use as a guide to identify these kids should have some Title I services in reading or math. And we also use that tool for progress monitoring. So as we provide the instruction on a weekly or every other week, teachers are assessing, are they learning, are they gaining? Is the intervention that they're using in the classroom or in the title room working? And if it is, you continue with it. If it's not, you might have to adjust it. So that just kind of shows kind of the process, and it's an ongoing process where we're checking back with the kids on where they're at. Are they making progress? Also, I talk about social emotional learning in here, and that's the self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship skills, and that is becoming more and more prevalent in education, the need to teach social emotional learning, and it ties in with the mental health stuff. And then also in here, we kind of broke it down, Mary helped out with this, as far as nuances and differences between the elementary support system and the high school. Also talked about our positive behavior intervention and supports, our PBIS is in there. And then ended with some of the mental health supports and school community partnerships that we have. And some of the things that came to my mind, 2 school social workers in a small district our size is a rarity in the state. We're very fortunate to have that. We have Northland Counseling Center in-house. We have a counselor and a children's therapeutic service and supports, a CTSS person in-house that work with staff and families. We have to do releases and stuff because you have that data privacy thing, but it's worked very well. And the neat thing about it for us here is if a kid has to see their counselor and the counselor's in Bemidji or Grand Forks, they have to leave for the day and they miss school. Here, they can come, get out of class for 25, 30 minutes, and they're back in class. So that's a great benefit for our kids and families. Plus it saves families cost of fuel for driving. And I talked about the local ministerium, our studs group. We have a suicide awareness prevention coalition within the community that has partnered with us. And I knew you wanted to look at lots of stuff, so I put some of the elementary things. So when you're in the hallway, you know how to, that we walk down the hallway and stuff like that. So that's a very brief summary on all that. Do you have any questions on anything?
Who decides that a kid is warrants special ed? Is that done in-house here, or is that done externally?
Part of the MTS process, we have an MTSS committee that works with teachers and families to come up with interventions. And depending on, it's kind of unique with each kid, but usually interventions run 6 to 8 weeks. If you're not seeing adequate progress, either you're choosing the wrong intervention, you need to change it, or there might be a learning disability. And then we work with BRIC in Bemidji, and they provide all of our special ed services. if we decide that the child is not progressing, and we might need to do an assessment, we do a child study meeting with them. And that's where we show them all the data on the child and all the interventions and supports that are in place. And then as a team, we decide, well, let's recommend, either they'll say, no, you need to go back and try X, Y, Z, and then come back, or they'll say, yeah, we probably need to do an assessment. And throughout the process, communicating with the parents, so parents aren't surprised that we're calling and say, hey, we want to assess your child for special education. They've known that there's been issues and that we're working with the child throughout the time.
And at that point, the assessment is, okay, this kid needs, some special programming. That's when state funding kicks in?
Yep.
And do they decide at that point if it needs to be one-on-one, or, is
Again, that's, so once you go from the MTSS team, you go to child study, and the child qualifies, then you have an IEP team. And that's the special ed teacher, it's staff from BRIC, and it's the parents. And it's really based on what the needs of the child are, and their disability. But that's decided locally, if that's what you're asking. The state doesn't say, no, you can't do that. It's with the family, and it's talk to anyone in the building that's involved with special education, and the paperwork and the documentation is crazy, how much documentation we have to do for the state. But that's all done locally as far as deciding what's the best program for the kid.
So basically, the state oversight is just a monitor.
The state monitors, and they look at your documentation, and if you're providing one-on-one para support services, and it doesn't match up with their assessment or the student's needs, red flags will come out, and they'll say, why are you providing this, or why are you not providing this? So there's checks and balances with the state. They don't fork over money without making sure you're doing everything you need to do.
The same process all the way through for elementary into high school?
Pretty much. The process is the same, basically. And I didn't even talk about 504, that's a whole another beast. But so the requirements are the same. We see a lot more referrals for assessments in the elementary than in the high school, in general.
Would probably be some new student that comes from another school, or
Yep.
hopefully you've
Yep.
identified it
Yep.
before they get there.
Yep, but there are some kids that
Yeah.
come up through, and then all of a sudden they might have been getting supports throughout, through MTSS title that helped, and then they get into high school and it's just not enough. And so, because just because you have a learning disability doesn't mean you have to be on an IEP. We have some kids that have disabilities that function fine and are able to meet their academic goals. So it's just providing the support and help the kids need if they need it.
I have a question. What is the difference? I realize that they both support the same thought, but the difference between PBIS and SEL. What do they provide that is like different?
Different?
Can I speak to
Oh,
like?
hi Mary.
Yes, go right ahead, because she can.
So like in the high school, when you think about PBIS, and it's almost like catching kids doing the right thing or going above and beyond and doing something extra. So for example, this morning, there were 3 junior high boys that were walking away to go down the hall, and they came back and cleaned up somebody else's mess off a table. I mean, to that, it's those positive behaviors that you want, and it's showing when you think about our 3 key things: be respectful, be responsible, and be safe. They were being responsible for the mess, and they were respecting our school. In the high school, quarterly, anybody that makes the honor roll, because one of the things we noticed was kids who are always doing the right thing and being a good student weren't necessarily getting recognized. So last year, if you made it on the honor roll, you got a ticket to put in for our drawing, you know? If you didn't have any unexcused absence or tardies, you got a ticket in, because they were making the choice to be doing those positive behaviors all the time. Sometimes it's those things in a classroom when a kid has difficulty, and man, they're turning in all their homework now. So teachers will notice different things than I may notice out and about in the school, that within their classroom, they're giving shout outs for PBIS. The SEL, the social emotional learning, I'm gonna say that's something in the high school that you'll see done, I'm gonna say more individual as far as each classroom. They'll pick something they're gonna focus on, and maybe it's dealing with a stressful situation or how to calm yourself and be ready. Some teachers might have the kids journal, some might have them practice different breathing techniques. With the monitors that we purchased, we have weekly SEL sayings up there with explanations behind them. So it's just that constant thing in a way to help you regulate yourself.
And that's more the high school.
That's more how the high school
Version.
addresses it, yeah.
In the elementary, we do bear bucks for the positive behavior. And it kind of goes, like Mary was saying, is catching them making good choices or the right choices. We no longer assume that kids know how to behave at school. They have to be taught. So that's the biggest thing with PBIS is the positive reinforcement. SEL in the elementary of Kathy Magnuson that comes in and works with, she goes into the classrooms and along with the teachers they co-teach different techniques and skills like breathing to calm yourself, how to cope with people that upset you in a positive way.
Conflict resolution type stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a circle time. It builds community in the classroom. So to me, it all works together. And just because we're in education, we have to have acronyms. So
I would say, I think SEL tends to be more philosophical in the sense like this is what you're teaching. This is the foundational teaching piece of how to do those things as well, and then the PBIS is what's the reward system for acknowledging, it's the system after the fact of acknowledging those same skills and behaviors.
So then how are negative behaviors, if you're rewarding the positive, what's the result of a negative behavior?
well, we do have a long list of progressive discipline steps. And it's different in the elementary than in the high school. It's kind of, that piece of it's kind of built on our judicial system, and we can see how effective that's been. But there are consequences. I think the natural consequences are the best teaching tools. We're very limited, at least in the elementary, we don't want to kick kids out of school.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
not saying that.
I mean,
if you're, disrespectful or you're, doing all the things that you're not supposed to do.
In the elementary, at that age, it's always reteaching what it is to be respectful. We do thinking reports in the office, and that's where the kid has to think about, all right, this is how I was disrespectful. And it's not just what they did, it's how did it impact the people around them. So even when we have the consequences, it's still teaching. We rarely kick kids out of school in the elementary.
That's why I had to write, I will not chew gum in class 500 times.
Yeah, I used to have to do that. It was more like talking.
But I mean, truthfully.
I felt like writing, I will not get caught chewing. But the breathing techniques really work well, even for adults. I mean, the SEL stuff that Kathy does extends to adults, just coping with stress. That's a big part of SEL, and we all feel stress, kids feel stress. So it's a lot of that coping type stuff. And that's what see, my wife gets upset at me, because at home when I get upset, I get, ugh. And she goes, well, you calm down. I said, I'm breathing. But I don't know, maybe I'm not using that, I need to work on my technique on that, but she thinks so. And maybe it's the rolling of the eyes as I'm doing it. I don't know, but that's all I have unless you have any other questions. Okay.
Very good. Thank you for that report too, Jeff, on that. It's very helpful. Next, high school principal, Ms. Merchant.
Good evening, everyone. I can't even remember what date it is, and I didn't put it down, but we had John Pritikin come for an assembly for 2 sessions, one for our elementary kids and one for our high school kids, and he was very well received. The entertaining part of it was watching him rip through, he said he used to use phone books, but you can't find thick phone books anymore. So it literally was a ream of paper. And I have him in my office window if you want to see him, and then took a frying pan and basically rolled it up and made it into a curl. But he was someone who, as a student, really was not treated very well in school, actually treated very poorly, and on the receiving end of a lot of bullying and things, and really spoke to the kids about overcoming it and just how to get beyond that, and pulled a couple kids on stage to help him with part of the program when he was doing the curling of the frying pan. So, and then he had a band with him, so of course that was fun for the elementary kids especially to get up and dance and stuff to some of the songs. So like I said, very well received, and we appreciate Cornerstone for sponsoring them for us. Last week was our choir concert for grades 6 through 12. Wonderful job, Mrs. Nordine and Mrs. Tangy. And then last Wednesday, our 7th graders got to go to the Creativity Festival in Bemidji. And they attended 3 different sessions. There were probably 10, 12 things to pick from for each session for them. And then high school had on November 14th a scheduled evening of conferences, but throughout the week teachers contacted parents, especially if they were struggling, but sent out open invitation to come during that 3:30 to 7 o'clock period if they could. And we had a meeting with our APAC group on November 15th. No, it was the 14th, wasn't it? Anyway, shared with them where we sit with funding. Mr. Nelson, you haven't heard back yet, have you? Maybe I don't want to know.
No.
And talked about things that we will do with the supplies and things we have to still bring some education to the students that we currently have. And World's Best Workforce, which you approved the previous month, I submitted that. And today I had an email from one of the people who goes through them, and there's just a couple things she wants clarification on, so I'm going to do a Zoom meeting with her tomorrow. And then I listed some of the things that I've been doing with students for the career and college support for them. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
You got off easy there.
That's because you presented the strategic plan.
All right. Next up, business office. Sharon?
So the 2023 audit is not yet complete. We actually found out that 2 of the auditors assigned to our school no longer work for the audit firm, which is why it's just keeps getting pushed back. So I have been working with the senior auditor with Bergen KDV, and she's working on getting just things closed out. The final UFARS deadline in which all audited UFARs need to be submitted to the state by November 30th. So we have a couple days. They're working on it. She sent me a bunch of questions over the weekend and I replied back. I haven't heard back today, but we'll really push and try to get it done. And if it's not submitted, there's a letter that needs to be sent to the state. I've actually never gone through that process. I think Jeff knows, but and then the final audited documents, the full report and everything is due to the state by December 30th. And the auditors actually submit that. Right now we are error-free. We've made several unaudited submissions. There's no errors. Everything's in line with UFAR standards. And Region 1 also goes through and they make sure that we've spent different dollars in different categories that we have to spend so we don't lose any funding. So they went through and made all the checks. Special ed UFARs have been correct for a couple weeks, so that's good. So we're just waiting to hear from the auditors when it's complete. They feel confident that they can present in December at the board meeting. So I will keep you up to date on that. So even looking at our financial data for FY 2024, it's still off slightly just because what our 2023 balances finish out at can affect how our 2024 balances start at. So if you look at my finance report, it says like state revenue, we're currently at 29% received for the year. That could change slightly because right now the state revenue received in 2024 might actually be moved to 2023. So Nancy did share with me that she feels that our state aid is understated. So we should have $264,882 in additional revenue for FY 2023, which is really good news. Just because of the overpayment from the year before that is happening in 2023. So that's good news. I thought there might be a discrepancy, so I feel that the deficit will be under $400,000. But we don't have concrete numbers yet, so I really hope that we can get that soon. The federal revenues are showing to be at 122% received. That's also not correct. Property taxes are at 24% received. That is correct. Our county dollars balance, and they were already checked and balanced, so we're good there. Local revenues at 0%. Food service, 16% received for the year, and community ed, 6% received. Our finance 150 summer academic and mental health support, I did draw those funds. We received $1,386.86. That was for work that Joyce Beckel completed in July and August. We have $0 remaining. There were schools that did not spend all their ESSER dollars, so that they take all the money back and then reissue it to the schools based on their enrollment and size. So we did get $641.76 in Finance 160 funds. Basically, we'll use it for instructional supplies. It's not even enough to even do a lot with, but we definitely will have enough instructional supplies to spend the money. And then we received $166.44 in 161 ESSER funds. Those funds were used for before and after school tutoring or instructional supplies for before and after school. We do have teachers and staff doing before and after school tutoring, so we're not going to have any trouble spending those funds. Farm to School First Bite Grant, we still have $2,500 remaining. Our Q3 submission is December 30th. those funds roll over to the next calendar year for us to spend. Salaries and wages for expenditures are at 25% expended. Employee benefits are 23% expended for the year. Purchase services, 59% expended. Supplies, 57% expended. Equipment, 67% expended. Food service, 34% expended. And community ed, 32% expended. Student activity balance reports were attached and sent out to all advisors last week. And, you know, other than getting our audit finished up, there isn't much else to report. On my end, I do have a STAR report due December 5th. Thankfully, the deadline's been moved back twice. So I'm working on that. I'm almost done with that. So the STAR report's just basically reporting to the state all the classes that the teachers are teaching and making sure that they fall under their licensure area with the state. And then all non-licensed staff are also reported. Transportation report was due on the 30th. That was completed over a month ago. So on my end, all the submissions are completed so far for the year. Any more questions on our reports or audit information?
What time of year was it last year when we submitted like quotes for the audit? Because we had to switch companies, right? Was it?
It was more in February, March, correct?
Okay.
I want to say, and I believe we actually put it out there for 2 months just because we hadn't received any quotes.
Yeah, I'm just, if there's any concern that this company might drop us too.
Right. Yeah, I haven't heard anything. My concern, I have worked with 2 other companies, and this is my first time working with this company, and I don't feel she's ever audited a school before. This is just based on working with her. It's much easier to do an on-site audit. There's a lot of give and take. You can ask questions. I feel like you can get through the audit much faster too. You're able to just pull information and give to them. I did a remote audit before during COVID, and that went fine too, but I had worked with that auditor for several years. That auditor was very diligent, where I would get a request for audit a month or 2 before audit. Like, this is what we need when we come and audit you in 6 weeks. I did not get an audit request until when audit started. Also, our final audit information from the prior company was not obtained until weeks after our audit. So definitely, I've never worked with this company. It was just much different than what I was used to. They also do not use our software. In the past, I've been used to our auditor actually going into our software and looking at our JEs or looking at our payments to different companies and requesting information, or even reviewing the PDF files that we attach to a voucher for payment or things like that, where they can just log in and look at the information, or they can even pull our information right from the system. I had to do all the downloads of information and send to them. So it was a little bit different than what I was used to. Definitely a lot more time consuming. And also, when they would ask for certain information, they would ask as if they were using a different software. So they're like, oh, I need this report. I'm like, we don't have that report in this software. So I'm like, oh, they must be thinking of Skyward. It's a different finance system. Well, okay, what report would you need in Smart Systems that's similar to that report? So it's just more so us communicating and trying to figure out what they need I've had everything pretty much uploaded to their SureLink system a long time ago. There's maybe 3 open items, but the 3 open items are not relevant to our school. So I uploaded everything that they needed, and they've emailed me with different requests. So then I would email it back, but now that those 2 auditors quit, a lot of that information is missing because it went to their email too, so.
So the senior auditor, you feel that she hasn't audited a school before, or the other more junior auditors that left?
The junior auditors that left. No, Nancy's audited a school before.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
So you should be able to just resend those emails to her, you think?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that takes a long time, but at least you won't have to load the data again.
My one concern is, so last year we had to have a single audit. So basically we received over $750,000 in revenue from the federal government in grants. So this year our assumption was we're under the threshold, but now Nancy emailed me on Saturday and she thinks that we're over $750,000. They have not completed necessarily a single audit on our data, so that could take longer. I have sent them all the information, like, they wanted, and this was one of the auditors that didn't quit, thankfully, but, he's like, hey, can you send me all your expenditures for finance code 161. So I would send it, and he goes, okay, can you send me all the payroll affiliated with 161? Who did you all pay using this pay code or these finance codes? So then I would send that information. So I feel we have some of it done, but now Nancy did ask, can you please send all your expenditures for all your grants or your federal grant dollars? So I said, what do you want specifically? Because that's a lot of information. I don't really know what you want.
Is the 750, I mean, this is, I guess I'm not sure, is the 750 based on when you're awarded it or when you receive it?
When you receive it.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
So are we over, so
She feels we're over it.
We were under, but she thinks we're over?
She thinks we're over, but when we were getting audited, those auditors said we were under too, so.
What does Carolyn say? Does she have that information?
No, because they also, they're factoring in federal food service dollars also. So she thinks that possibly put us over.
Yeah.
So, wait and see. But they have all our expenditures. They have all our UFAR's information. So they have all the information they should need on the grants. Everything was even submitted to MDE and reconciled way back in July when that needed to be done, so.
Is the single audit deadline December 30th also?
Oh, I believe so. I believe it falls along with these. It's basically an additional submission that has to be made on the federal side. Bailey actually showed me how they did it last year, but it's an additional even dollar amount that we're billed, so we would be billed in addition to what we're currently being billed. So I wish we had happy news to report, but.
Is it worth going out for another round of bids this year?
I would
And do you
like
need
to.
anything from the board to do that? I guess that's where I want to go with that.
We don't.
You could just do it.
We can just do it. I would like to, so I do work with other schools. I worked with one other firm doing payroll for a charter school, and there was another firm I worked with, and I only obviously did the payroll components, but I logged into their system and I had all the data they needed uploaded in a couple hours. I did it on a Friday. I knew exactly what they wanted, what they needed. They asked me to pull reports from PERA, pull this report from TRA, then please pull this from their payroll and upload it. It was very concrete, exactly what they wanted, and I was able to do it very quick. I didn't feel like that happened this year. I had no idea what they wanted. Not good communication. But the problem is, just like, you know, there's employment issues across the state. Firms are struggling to keep employees, and there's firms that are choosing not to audit schools anymore, so
Well, that's
we're
why-
limited.
That's why we're in the situation we're in, right?
I was told that the sooner you seek bids, the better. So usually by the spring, they already have their firm list. So we can try and see where it takes us.
Maybe get sent a Christmas card or something. That you have connections with those other firms.
And it seems like firms, just want to do remote audits also. And I was speaking with one of my coworkers today, and he was an auditor for many years, and he said, you know, I did remote. He goes, I would go to schools and audit them, and then we transitioned to remote audits. He said, I did it for so long, I knew how to do an audit. I knew how to do a remote audit, you know, quick, and I knew exactly what to do. So he said, you know, with these newer people starting and coming in, they've never did an audit, let alone doing a remote audit. So he said, I've just really found that we're losing that communication that we used to have. And to, you know, being prepared and having everything ahead of time, you know, really helps.
And you build a better relationship if you've done an on-site audit with them, and then that carries on to that remote, right?
So there's definitely pros and cons. I feel that it's going to be really difficult to find an auditor that's going to be willing to come on site. But I feel like if we have someone with more experience, and I feel there was clearly some other issues beforehand. So
We throw in a fishing trip or something. Kind of use what we have.
They do like that. Yeah.
That's how Robin gets her auditors, right?
And if you give us a favorable audit, we'll even show you how to get back.
This might have been their first school district audit also.
So maybe it's not like the company, it's just the individuals that were put.
And it very well could be, because Nancy was really good about communicating with me Saturday. She had a long email with questions and information she wanted. So
I'm hoping in December, before she presents, you and I can sit down with her and discuss some of these issues. And see
Yes.
where she's at with it.
yeah, and then so we'll be reviewing all the reports and documents prior to the board meeting too. And there were some slight discrepancies just in the audited information from last year too. So just what was in the report in a few categories, not necessarily aligning with finance. So we'll get all those things squared away also.
Thanks, Shana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Activities Director and Community Ed.
Hello. So I have given you an updated sheet that I put in front of your, it's an updated report from me. We've had some changes over the course of the last weekend. The specific note is for our hockey coaching lineup. Dallas Block unfortunately is having some health issues that have prevented him from continuing. So as of right now, Brandon Story holds the head coaching license, holds a head coaching license, so we're covered there. He and Brett Nylander are going to co-coach. Very grateful to Brett for stepping up and taking on such a big job in such a short amount of time. He was doing some he was doing some practices for Dallas as a kind of guest coach sort of situation, so he knew the crew, and but really grateful that he's been willing to step up. So you will see a more formal confirmation of hiring Brett in the next meeting. All of this kind of formalized this weekend, so we're gonna figure out pay structures and all of that over the course of this next week or next month, and we'll formally hire him at the next meeting. And then you'll see the rest of the winter coaching lineup. Some new coaches, and for the girls basketball junior high crew, Devo Hansen, Caden Noga. Caden is going to do a kind of, we have our 6th grade crew who are kind of junior high, but kind of still a little young for a real strong junior high schedule. So he's going to do a kind of 4th through 6th hybrid community ed junior high with that 6th grade group. So we'll see how that goes. If that's a good model, I might do that across the board so that we can make sure we get good time and practice and games for all of our 6th graders. So that's a little bit of an experiment. That is not an additional, I had budgeted for that, so there's no additional money being paid for his position. Similarly with boys basketball, you'll see TJ Frericks is junior high boys basketball coach there. A fun note, we had enough junior high basketball players to hold a tryout. Of course, nobody was cut, but we had enough competition that we wanted to say who was going to be on kind of an A team and a B team. So exciting there. Part of the background in that is that with a lack of numbers in any sport, you lose that edge, that competitive edge for, we see it in our volleyball. We have a really competitive program because we have numbers and because a kid is not entitled to a spot on a team, or at least on the top level team. And so numbers allow for a more competitive edge. So I think we are incredibly excited to have enough kids at that, and they're quite talented, at that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade group to be able to have 2 teams and 2 solid competitive teams. Joyce Washburn is back as our one-act play director. She is also, we're doing the same model as we did last year, where we're doing 2 plays at once. One is our competitive play, and the other is a community ed play. That allows her a little bit more flexibility between who's got parts in both places, being as inclusive as possible for whoever wants to come out. And then Liz Tangy is doing our senior high Knowledge Bowl coach. Tina Lorette is doing our junior high coach, which segues into my next piece. We are hiring Tina Lorette as an education or enrichment coordinator, and created this position because of a little bit of a hole in organizing, but she'll take on the Creativity Festival, Young Authors Conference, Math Masters, Spelling Bee, as well as Junior High Knowledge Bowl. So to me, there's a real connection, an obvious connection between that kind of outside of school academic enrichment stuff that's happening, despite the fact Knowledge Bowl is a extracurricular, so to speak. So I think it's a good position. She'll have contact with a lot of those junior high kids. 5th through 8th is the way we're kind of approaching that enrichment group. Any questions on any of that before I move on? Okay. Lots of good people. I think that's what's always fun about putting these lists together, is like a lot of people stepping up to make these activities happen, and they're all really good humans. I mean, we're lucky to have them. Holiday extravaganza happened a week ago Saturday. As always, a great event. It was partnered with the Frost Fest that happened in town, so it was a long day of excellent activities. So excited to have them partnered on some advertising and things like that. We had over 50 vendors. We think about 700 plus people in the building. It's just a really fun thing. And, you know, a lot of, a big shout out to Lisa Beckstrand, who puts a lot of time and energy into that. But also the legacy of CC Charlton lives on in this event. It is a real community builder, and we are lucky to be able to host it, show off our building, put a lot of people together. We had a bed turning from the Lady Slipper Quilt Guild. It's where they show off and tell stories of quilts that they've made as if they're making a bed. It's quite a fun show. Anyway. Pool update. We were formally closed over Thanksgiving, but they had a break in a motor piece. I don't know where that, it seemed like a relatively straightforward fix. Waiting on a part for that, I think. It is up and going. They did. Okay, great. So we didn't have swimming last Wednesday for the elementary. Continuing to struggle to staff. I think, you know, trying to figure out we've got this pool attendant position that we're advertising, which is a way of trying to get adults, but who don't need to be lifeguard certified in that position. So, you know, Lisa and I are kind of working through some scheduling things and trying to figure out how to best manage the staff that she's got, as well as, you know, plug some more people into roles that we need them in. The challenge we're facing is that we've had a couple people express interest in that pool attendant position and then say, I can make more money in other places. I think we're offering $12.50 an hour. So, you know, it is what it is, because the reality is if we up that, then we also have to up our lifeguard because they are a certified position, and then your WSI. So it's a little bit of a slippery slope in that, but we've had, I think, 3 people ask about that position and then say no based on the pay. So we're not in a dire situation yet, but trying to figure out how to approach that in a sustainable way. Okay, that's all I've got. Any questions? Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, next up we have buildings and grounds with Seth.
This one's kind of pretty short. These are just kind of some of the biggest things that we've gone through. Jeff touched on earlier with Seth about building evaluation. When I put my notes down in here, the rough draft was complete, working on answering questions. We're at the point now where the final draft is done. They just got it to me last week. Jeff and I need to sit down and go through it and see what everything is, make sure everything's done. Once that's done, they had asked if they could come up here and present that, if we wanted them to do that too. So hopefully we get everything buttoned in place, and I'm looking at maybe the December meeting. I would like to have that done and present it to you guys by then. Any questions on that one? Okay.
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Did they talk about any, like I read through it quickly, but scheduling as far as like how that lines up with maybe your LTFM plan?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. This is their evaluation, just going out, looking at the building, what it needs to get done. Not so much the financing part of it yet.
Okay.
We haven't talked about that. Yeah, that'd be the next step.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. Thank you. The next one, the auditorium lighting project is completely done. Yes,
It looks
finally.
great. It's really amazing.
The guys, the electricians did a fantastic job. They pretty much gutted all the old wiring throughout the whole auditorium, started from scratch, so we know what we got. We have an as-built on it now, all new up-to-date equipment. It looks beautiful, working great. The light system's gonna take a little bit to work on how to work everything, but everything is working. Sam's doing the best she can on it. Our user manual is, what, 640 pages long? So it's quite extensive.
But she's got it right now, so it's got red and green in the backdrop for the Christmas band concert, so some fancy stuff happening on it. We're having fun with it, which I appreciate.
When we were, excuse me, when we redid all the wiring inside, they had just a table, portable table with all this expensive equipment on it. Sat down with Dale and we went through and we redesigned it and redid everything. So it's stable, it's clean, it's built to last now. So everything is a lot better in there, and it's gonna last hopefully a lot longer than I am. So that's the plan. Any questions? That's all I got for right now.
Actually, just something real quick for buildings and grounds, an update on the track. I enlisted the assistance of Katie Hasbargen's civil engineering class for 2 days. Had them out there surveying with the county's survey grade GPS, and I'm compiling that data. I'm getting ready to send that off to Braun.
Perfect. That was so awesome. We had Brent, what's Brent's last name? The old building, not community yet.
Brent Cole.
was here that day. They had brought his class down here, or rode for the competition, I believe. And he asked what was going on out there, and I told him what was going on. He's like, "That's brilliant." He goes, "That was so cool," and he was really glad to see the participation between the school and the county together to get that going.
No, good bunch of kids. They had a good time with them, and
I
the
was
weather
wa-
worked out and everything.
I was watching you guys, and they're smiling and laughing. I was like, man, this is a good thing. So thank you for doing that.
Anything else for the working session? If not, I think we will just roll right into the regular meeting.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make the motion.
Second by Lyon.
Johnson and Lyon. Any discussion? Hearing none, for motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have the Truth in Taxation hearing. We've got a presentation by Sheena Brandt, Business Manager.
I don't have a fancy touch screen.
I got a new computer that's got touch screen. So every screen I'm going up to.
Jeff, it's not a touch screen.
I do the same thing to my daughter all the time. I go to touch her screen and nothing happens.
Quit touching my screen.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, how do I
Your
say
finger
got
off my
it?
screen.
Oh.
I'm usually the opposite. I don't touch something. It's touch screen, don't touch it. You're gonna mess it
Oh, I see. That's weird. I'm not seeing it.
One of those.
Mhm.
And she had a dentist appointment the next day.
Yeah.
This is our 2023-2024 budget and proposed 2024 property tax presentation. This is weird. So our factors that affect our taxes are your property classification and value, the school district's factors affecting pay 2024, and we're also going to talk about putting it together, and there's time for questions at the end. Truth in taxation meetings are required. A law was passed in 1989. There's two major requirements. The first is tax statements must be sent out by the counties, which are the proposed property tax statement in November based on our proposed tax levies set by taxing jurisdictions, which include the counties, cities, townships, and school districts. We are also required to have a public meeting. Most taxing jurisdictions must hold a public meeting prior to certifying the final levy. At the meeting, we need to discuss the payable 2024 levy, the fiscal year 2024 budget, and allow for public comments. Who sets the levy? This is set by the state, in which a formula is approved by the legislature. This includes a general education formula, operating capital, career and technical, and reemployment, etc. There's several different factors. It is also voter approved as authorized by the state. We have operating referendums and building bond referendums. How is my property tax determined? A county assessor determines the market value for each parcel of property. The Minnesota legislature sets formulas for tax capacities. These formulas determine how the tax burden is split on different types of properties, whether it's residential, commercial, or ag. The county auditor calculates the tax capacity for each parcel based on the above. The county auditor divides the total levy by total tax capacity of the district to determine the tax rate needed. The tax rate is then multiplied by each property's tax capacity. So these graphs show the state aid impact on who collects the taxes versus who spends the taxes. So school districts collect 7% of taxes, and then it shows like who spends the tax dollars. We spend 24% of the tax dollars for the county. Sorry, the state aid. The next one is the general education formula allowance. So this just shows on the graph the state funding. The formula allowance is the dotted orange line. It's the allowance adjusted for pupil weight change. The blue is adjusted for pupil weight change and inflation. So this just shows that the cost to operate schools continues to increase, but the formula allowance is not increasing at the same rate, which is why schools are struggling also, just because costs keep going up, but we're not getting more money. The next graph just compares property tax levies for a school and a non-school. So if you look at the blue line, these are the levies for the school districts, while the dotted orange line is local government and the dollars that they're getting, which is significantly higher than school districts. This is the 2023-2024 budget for the school district for this year. For the general fund revenues, $7,368,143, and then the expenses are $7,202,735, with a net difference of $165,408. So if you look at each category, we have our revenues, expenditures, and the net difference. Overall, for our budget, for all categories, we are budgeting to have a revenue of $115,093. So looking at our levy certification sheets, which are found on the Minnesota Department of Education website, our levy for 2024 is $817,200.27. The levy for 2023 was $450,798.42. The county apportionment for 2024 is $506,332.05. For 2023, it was $426,798.42. $735.38. So the difference between the 2 years is that the revenue collected comes from the property taxes. Taxes rose significantly from 2023 to 2024 due to the county assessor's estimate value of each parcel. So I'm sure many of you got your tax statements in the mail and noticed a very large increase from last year. I know I did in Roseau County. So what actually happens is more revenue will be coming from Lake of the Woods County to the schools, which then reduces our state aid. So that's why the levies are much higher for this year. The district will also receive an additional $216,631 in state aid, which was passed over the summer. But we also have additional mandates that we have to follow. That is earned safe and sick leave, which actually begins in January, and then summer unemployment was effective last year too. We did get funding to cover that for this year, but next year it's still mandated, but we're not going to get additional revenue to cover that.
Where does the paid family medical go? 2026?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is what you got in the mail. So the effective tax rates are shown above, and these are just the 2023 estimates. So for farm, 0.48%, seasonal rec, 0.79%, residential homestead, 1.14%, apartments, 1.43%, public utilities, 2.5%, and commercial industrial, 2.59%. And this next slide just shows the share of tax liability. It just shows each of our property classifications, what the market value share is, and what the share of net taxes actually are. Egg to school tax credit. This was a permanent law initiated in 2017. It affects existing Fund 7 debt levies, except for OPEB bonds. It has reductions for farmer and timber owners. It will remain at 70% for 2024. The revenue for Egg to School comes from state income, sales, and other tax revenue. The next slide just shows the 70% egg tax credit on bonds and the payable year and the percent increase. And this next slide just shows you where to look for your Egg to School credit. The next slide just shows the Egg to School credit paid 2023 and where our district falls. Slide. So way up in yellow towards the top, we have the smallest.
We're above the median.
Yeah. I was just trying to find my notes on this one.
Aren't we below the median?
Depends which half you look at.
I actually have a slide on this, so where did it go?
Oh, okay. I see that.
Did I just
That's
pass
only
it?
divided into.
Oh. Where's slide 23?
It was like,
20,
it was
Oh.
like 4 more.
here we go. It's not letting me go. Or not. thought there was another slide on that one, but there must not be. I'm thinking.
There's
of-
two more slides with
Not on the
Minnesota
red
maps. Is that what you're looking for?
Which one?
Go back to the map. Put the cursor on.
The MREA map?
Oh, that's not, but there is a, if you wanna go click on it.
On that link.
That's nice. There it is. I didn't know it did that, thanks. So there we are, 172,178 above the median of $167,051. So this slide just talks about the equalization factors. I am not seeing this. I have to present again. There it goes. Ag land and seasonal rec properties are exempt from OP ref, and more levy. Your school district tax levy. Possible reasons for changes to your parcel: change in value or classification of your property, change in enrollment numbers, change in valuation of property in the district, local decisions and requirements, adjustment for prior years, and legislative changes. And so this next slide just shows how our district compares in operating referendums across the state. Our district is $437 per adjusted pupil unit. The median is $504. The upper quartile of referendums is $1,038. So we are below the district median of $504 per pupil. It's not working again. That's what happens when I go to a map. Yes, I need to reshare it, but I was just getting to do that. This doesn't really- No, it doesn't. This is the property wealth map. How does your district compare in referendum market value per residential pupil unit? Our district is $778,033.36 per RPU. The median district is $601,021. This means we are above. The long-term facilities maintenance is included in school property taxes for 2024. School board and MDE approved a 10-year facility maintenance plan. So there's a lot of things included in our plan, but two major projects we're discussing are window replacement and each year doors. And also this year we did add the lighting project in the auditorium. We initially did budget under capital, but it did qualify for LTFM, and so we coded there, so that was great. So each year we submit a budget to the state for our LTFM, but we can change that at any time also. It's just what we're planning for projects coming up. They want us to just lay it out for several years. Our LTFM revenue, and on the spreadsheet they indicated what page and line item you would find it on in the levy certification report. So I did provide you a copy in case you wanted to look. It's an awful lot of information that we go through, but it's good information to know. So our LTFM revenue is page 10, line 422. We receive $147,224.05. The state aid share is $0. The local share coming from the levy is the full amount. We don't get any revenue from the state for LTFM this year is what it's showing. This is our proposed pay 24 levy. So once we enter all our data that's needed in the levy online through the Minnesota Department of Ed website, our amounts are all adjusted in our levy certification report, and this information is found on the levy certification report. I want to say page 30. So right now it's stating all funds combined for pay 2024 is $2,050,832.79. This is a decrease of $101,381.25, which is 4.71% less than last year. If you have any questions on your property tax statement, you can call your county auditor or your county treasurer. Or if you have any questions, the number for the state of Minnesota is on there also for property tax relief.
Okay, so I guess we open it up to public comment and questions from the board. Thank you. We don't have a motion on that. So, thank you, Sheena.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we've got board presenters.
There's no dimmer on that.
I don't think we have any board presenters. So then we'll go to written communications, and we had a Northwest Service Co-op Board of Directors ballot and an invitation to file for election on the Joint Powers Board of Region 1. So if anybody's interested, talk to Jeff. No old business. Next up, we've got new business. Looking for a motion to approve the October 23rd, 2023 board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Johnson and Ellis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're looking for a motion to approve the invoices, financial statements, bank reconciliation, wire transfers, and purchase card statements.
I'll make that motion.
Second by Lyon.
Okay, Ellis and Lyon, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve personnel resignations, retirements, and appointments. We've got resignations from Susan Maxfield, custodian, and Nicole Gate, school readiness teacher. And appointments of TJ Frericks, varsity baseball coach, Chris Larson, assistant hockey coach, Devo Hansen, junior high girls basketball coach. Hayden Noga, junior high girls basketball coach. Tina Lorette, enrichment coordinator. Shelby Nosen, substitute teacher. Aspen Jaros, paraprofessional, and Alexis Jones as a substitute paraprofessional.
All motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Robita, second by Johnson. Any discussion? I just want to recognize Susan and Nicole for their service.
Yeah.
And anything else? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we've got looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/2024-11, accepting a donation of $433 from the First Lutheran Church to the Angel Fund.
Make the motion.
Second it.
Johnson and Robita, any discussion? I want to thank First Lutheran for their donation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/2024-12, accepting a donation of $900 from the North Star Electric.
I'm pretty sure, well, that's probably unclaimed capital credits.
Okay. To the backpack program.
I'll make that motion.
Second by Lyon.
Okay. Motion by Ellis, second by Lyon.
Should that be worded different?
I'm not 100% positive, but I think the board of directors they decided who to give unclaimed capital credits to, and I'm pretty sure that's.
Not like their
It's-
Roundup grant, but.
I don't think
their-
it's
yeah.
Operation Roundup, I think it's from the board of directors, so.
So should I note that?
No, if it just says North Star Electric Cooperative, I think that's fine. For just a second, I had to think about it because sometimes there's different pots that things come from, but I think that's fine.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Who made those motions? I'm sorry.
Ellis and Lyon.
Okay. Thank you to North Star. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/24-13, accepting a donation of $3,072.48 from CHI Lakewood to the high school special ed cooking classes.
Make the motion. Second.
Okay. Motion by Robita, second by Johnson. Any discussion? Thank you to CHI for that.
Is there a reason for the specificity of that?
Oh.
Two stoves, you're talking about for the,
Yeah, home ec.
The home ec room?
2 stoves and a new fridge freezer.
Awesome.
Nice.
Okay.
Very good.
It wasn't just a random donation. It was pretty specific. All right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're coming too.
Okay. Keepers. Got a motion, got a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/2024-14, accepting a donation of $300 worth of cooking supplies from Border Bank to the high school special education cooking classes.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Motion by Ellis, second by Sonstagaard. Any discussion? Again, thank you to Border Bank for that donation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/2024-15 to accept a donation of $100 from the Scott and Marcia Smisek to the backpack program.
All motion.
Second by Lyon.
Okay, Robita and Lyon, any discussion? Thank you for that donation. Again, All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. There's lots of donations, it's amazing. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/2024-16, accepting a donation of $250 from the Mount Carmel WELCA to the backpack program.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Ellis, second by Sonstagard. Any discussion? And thank you to Mount Carmel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I think that's it.
I think so.
Any other business? Okay. We'll adjourn at 7:37.
Kind of nice when so much of the meeting is taken up by people willing to donate something. And you've got a good contingent of ex-students in that coaching staff. You know, good representation there from. Yep. Good luck with the hockey.
Made my kid double practice.